Hi everyone, thanks for choosing this stream. I'll try and keep it entertaining and informative because I'm obviously standing in the way of lunch. I'm Simon Spire from a company called Conduit, and we describe ourselves as data value architects, which really means that we, I suppose, are business consultants that help our clients make better decisions about their business using data. So our clients tend to be in retail, FMCG, and financial services. And I guess this presentation will be my sort of perspectives on those organisations, how they are using data, some of the frustrations, some of the challenges that they're experiencing. So it's really big data for big business. So I'm not going to be talking a huge amount about algorithms, hardware, software. I'm going to be focusing more on the business application of data. And when I think about the business application of data, to me that's all about knowledge. And knowledge is something that's, I think, been relevant to business for as long as business has existed, certainly since the Industrial Revolution. We've picked a photo of a boot store from 1880, but it could easily have been a Sainsburys, a Tesco. And I think actually data was simple then, but actually it was just important to the organisation. It was, you know, if you went into Boots in Nottingham in 1880, they would probably know who you were, what you were in for, and that you came in on a Friday afternoon. And that knowledge permeated the whole business in terms of service, supply chain, buying, and actually how they market themselves. And we tend to work quite a lot in the marketing and customer space. And actually knowledge is just as relevant for marketing. Don't know if anybody knows who this chap is. Any guesses? Peter Drucker, doyen of management consultancy. He sort of invented the sport in the 1950s. And I like this quote: the aim of marketing is to know and understand the customer so well that the product or service fits him and sells itself. So to me, that transcends the organisation. It isn't so much about marketing. It's about using data, knowledge, information to understand the customer and build a relationship with a customer. And to some extent, therein lies the problem. So the clients that we work with, I think, have lots of data, or they certainly have the ability to collect lots of information. It exists throughout the organisation, and I think in some senses it probably complicates things because there is so much information. And when we look at those businesses, I think they all recognise that data is powerful, but it feels quite inaccessible. So everybody looks at Google, Amazon. People are data-driven businesses using things. Organisation is geared around their data and that knowledge that the data delivers and how that can be used. But actually, for most clients, in most industries, actually data is a pretty siloed business, and they haven't necessarily made the case for actually joining all of that data together. So we've got CRM engines, we've got comms engines, we've got operational databases, transactional databases, business intelligence systems. But actually, that's quite often siloed and quite segregated within an organisation. And as a result of that, I think most organisations actually don't know where to start with big data, or if they decide they know where to start, it's probably with the technology and with the software without perhaps going through that process of actually how do we want to be using this information within our business, what are we trying to get out of it. But against that sort of backdrop of data empowering businesses but also them and people not being sure actually how to get the most out of data, from my point of view, the fundamentals of a business haven't changed at all. It's still about how do you get your sales line going, how do you take out cost, and how do you do that in a sustainable way that isn't going to screw up your business, and certainly in the medium term. So the thing that we talk a lot about is actually about finding the big number, which actually I think if an organisation can find the big number, it gives them something that they can start to orientate themselves around. And I've just got three quick examples of what I think are big numbers for a business. First is IKEA, who you will all be probably all too familiar with. IKEA, when we worked with them, had grown pretty substantially in Western Europe, starting to plateau. And IKEA's biggest problem was actually that people only go to IKEA maybe 2 or 3 times a year, and that's if they like if they like IKEA as a brand, and an awful lot of people don't like IKEA as a brand. But when people go to IKEA, they spend a lot because you can't go there for less than 3 or 4 hours. You can't navigate the store. You can't get round the screaming couples and everything else. So actually, the big number for IKEA was one more visit. And actually, if they could deliver one more visit, that would increase their sales by 20 to 30%. So that number, that one more visit, started to actually inform what's the business plan, what data do we actually need to collect, what data do we already have, and how can we start to aggregate that across the business and start to apply it to all of our business. So from a marketing perspective, do we need a loyalty program to actually start to activate people and get them back to store? But also from a ranging and a merchandising point of view, actually, how do we use information to actually try and drive one more visit? Second one is Sainsburys, which I think is a really good example. So in 2005, when Justin King came into Sainsburys, they were a business in disarray, 10 years of decline. And he made a commitment to the city that he would grow sales by £1 billion over the next 3 years. And that almost set, this is the business challenge, how are we going to achieve it? And through a large sort of exhausting data analytic exercise, the number that screamed out was actually one more product. Could we get people to put one more product in their basket on each of their visits? Because if they did, that would actually deliver that £1 billion of extra sales. And again, that spawned a huge number of activities across the business. Probably the best example, I think, is the Try Something New Today campaign, which was all about just trying to get people to throw one extra product into their basket. And then the other one that the client we've worked with is the AA, where similar sort of business challenge, business either plateauing or business in decline. Challenge was actually how do we engage our customers, and through a data exercise with the AA, the most compelling number was 5 percentage points, which was the number that if a AA customer has a positive service experience in their year of membership, they'd be 5 percentage points more likely to renew their policy in the next year. So again, that gave the business something to start to orientate itself around, build its business plan around, and then start to build its data strategy around. So I think my sort of view is actually start with the big question. What is the business trying to achieve? What's the brand problem? And then what's the role of data in answering that problem? And our approach, I suppose, is threefold. One is looking at the context, which is looking at data in its widest sense. Actually, how is the category that a brand operates in performing? Where are the opportunities? Is it under or overperforming that category? What's the business truth? What's being tried? Actually, how is the business performing? How is the business made up? Are there business units that are doing things really well? Are there business units that are perhaps not doing things so well? And then, probably most importantly, in my view, actually, what's the consumer truth? So actually, who are the consumers that we think we could acquire? Who are the consumers that we've got? What do different types of consumers look like? And how do we use that intelligence to actually unite customers as much as segment them and start to build a proposition around that? Out of all of that intelligence and insight and knowledge, we can then start to build a business case. And then the final piece, which you perhaps can't read it towards the back, is that sort of quadrant of actually, once I've built the business case and understand what I'm trying to do, the 4 enablers, from my point of view, are data. What data have I got? What data do I need? How do I want to deploy it? Who are the people that I've got within the organization? And actually, how do I want to get them using data? And that's both from an analytic point of view, but also through to actually getting them to take better decisions and make better actions. What are the processes that we're trying to develop? What are the processes that are going to add the most value to the business? And then what's the role of technology in enabling and facilitating all of that? So to me, there's probably 3 big data opportunities for business. One is what I've called a sort of concept of show me, you know me, which as a consumer, I think is probably the basic expectation that we all have now, that if I'm sharing my information and having a relationship with a business, that they should be using that information in a way that's personal, relevant, timely for me. And I think actually most businesses sort of tend to orientate to the sort of box at 12 o'clock, which is incentivize me. So using data to bribe, incentivize, try and push me back to make another visit. Don't know what that was. But actually, there's great opportunities, I think, to use data to actually look at how you differentiate your business and how you build relationships with consumers through entertaining them, supporting them, proactively intervening. If we see from data, from intelligence, that something's gone wrong, how do we use that to actually recover the relationship and do something to actually strengthen it? The second one is around alignment and ownership. I think probably more so, well, I don't know. Without exception, I think every organisation that we've worked with is incredibly siloed, with different parts of the business focusing on different business challenges. And I think actually data has the opportunity to actually align people to have some either shared ownership or distinct ownership, so that the business can actually move in a consistent direction and take advantage. And the third is around performance management. So actually, how can we deliver data to the right people at the right time in the right format so they can actually make a better decision and take an action? We saw some slides earlier about the norm for most businesses when they think about data, big data, is Excel spreadsheets. And I think that just breeds data blindness, and it's the same report every month. It's not telling me what I should be doing differently. And I think there's an enormous opportunity for big data in business to actually prioritize actions and make it specific to the individual rather than something that people have to go out and find the answer. And probably the biggest challenge goes back to that ownership and sort of governance of data within an organization. So I think businesses are siloed, and that sort of breeds, actually, we're going to have a customer database and we're going to have a transactional database, and never the two shall meet. Or if we do want them to meet, who's actually going to own that? And I think if we bring things back to actually what's the business trying to achieve, what's the business objective, what's the business plan, then we've got an opportunity to actually start breaking down some of those silos. And I think the other thing that then sort of forces where we do have these silos is that that IT and the business tend to be on completely different trajectories. So the business is trying to manage things at an enterprise level. The marketing department is trying to be reactive and seeing things in the market and doing things fast. The IT guys are saying, okay, but I've got to understand marketing, finance, supply chain, you name it. I've got a 3-year plan and you need to be part of that. And the marketing guys say, I need to do something in 3 months. So actually, if we can define what the business challenge is, what the data strategy is, I think we can actually start to unite people. For anybody who isn't a classicist, that's Venus and Mars. So just to wrap up, really, I mean, my 3 tips for any business in the sort of looking at big data and thinking, how do we get to grips with it? Start by defining the question, and if you can, try and identify what the big number is for the business that actually the business can start to get behind in its entirety. The second one, actually, when we sort of did the submission for this conference, we were talking about small data, but actually I think a term that we've started to use is this sort of idea of minimum viable data. I'm a big fan of lean, big fan of agility. Actually, for businesses, it doesn't necessarily have to be the perfect answer to within a fraction of a percentage point. It's actually, is this working, yes or no? Should we do more of it? So actually, how can a business find that minimum viable data and actually start making some tangible decisions based on that? And then my final one, which perhaps slightly contentious with this audience, is actually look at data, people and processes and then fit the technology around that, rather than sourcing technology and then trying to fit data, people and processes around the technology.